Welcome to Crime Light, where we shine a light on real crimes, real stories, and the truths hidden in the dark.
Faith Hedgepeth was a 19-year-old college student, a daughter, a friend, and a young woman with plans for the future. In September of 2012, she was found murdered inside her off-campus apartment near the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. Despite early DNA evidence, the case would remain unsolved for nearly 10 years. However, when the truth finally came out, it revealed how close investigators had been to answers all along. This is the case of Faith Hedgepeth. Faith Danielle Hedgepeth was born in North Carolina and was a proud member of the Lumbee tribe, one of the largest Native American tribes in North Carolina. Faith attended UNC Chapel Hill, where she was studying biology with hopes of working in healthcare. Friends and family described Faith as outgoing, social, and determined. She was someone who stayed connected to her roots, her family, and her culture, all while navigating college life away from home. At just 19 years old, Faith was balancing school, friendships, and the independence that comes with young adulthood. Nothing about her life suggested it would end so tragically. In the days before her death, Faith had been involved in disputes with people in her social circle. There were arguments, tensions, and emotional stress, the kind that can feel so overwhelming at that age. On the evening of September 6, 2012, Faith went out with her roommate, Karina Rosen, and several friends. They attended a party at a nearby apartment complex. At some point during the night, tensions flared once more, leaving Faith to leave the party early as she returned to her apartment alone in the early morning hours of September 7th. What happened after she walked through that door would not be discovered until later that morning. Later that morning, Faith's roommate returned to the apartment. When she knocked on Faith's bedroom door, there was no answer. After a few minutes, her roommate entered the room where she found Faith unresponsive on the bed. Emergency responders were called, but it was already too late. Faith Hedgepeth had been found beaten and strangled with a handwritten note beside her body. Investigators noted signs of a struggle inside the apartment, but there was no clear indication of forced entry. This raised immediate questions about whether Faith knew her attacker or if the person had entered unnoticed. The apartment was secured as a crime scene, and evidence was collected. Among that evidence was DNA. During the investigation, detectives discovered a voicemail on Faith's phone. The recording was disturbing. It included voices, laughter, and sounds that investigators believed could be significant. However, it was unclear when the voicemail was recorded or whether it was connected to the murder. On the screen you can see a small section of the said transcribed voicemail. In 2013, police made the unusual decision to release the voicemail to the public, hoping someone would recognize the voices. Instead, it ignited widespread speculation. Online theories spiraled, some of which was centered on Faith having a struggle with an unknown male intruder. It was theorized it was someone she knew. Accusations were made without evidence. Despite public fascination, the voicemail never led to an arrest, and it was never conclusively tied to Faith's death. From the beginning, investigators had DNA evidence believed to belong to Faith's killer. But in 2012, forensic technology was not as advanced as it is now in 2025. The DNA profile did not match anyone in existing criminal databases. With no match, no witnesses, and no clear suspect, the investigation came to a halt. Detectives interviewed people close to Faith and explored multiple leads, but none resulted in charges. Over time, the case grew cold. For Faith's family, years passed without answers, despite having DNA evidence. Nearly a decade later, advancements in forensic genetic genealogy helped solve past cold cases and even infamous cases like the Golden State Killer. With that being said, investigators revisited the DNA evidence using the modern techniques that allowed them to search genealogical databases rather than criminal ones. This process led them to a man named Miguel Enrique Salguero Olivares, age 28. Miguel Salguero Olivares had no known personal relationship with Faith. Investigators determined the crime was likely a crime of opportunity. In 2021, Olivares was arrested and charged with Faith Hedgepeth's murder. For the first time in nearly 10 years, the case had a name attached to it. As recent as 2024, the case had a hearing to determine a trial date. Prosecutors relied heavily on DNA evidence recovered from the crime scene, which they argued conclusively tied Olivares to the murder. The defense challenged the lack of eyewitnesses and questioned the interpretation of evidence, but the DNA remained central. Miguel Enrique Salguero Olivares has a trial date set for September 28, 2026. The murder of Faith Hedgepeth highlighted the importance of preserving evidence, even when technology cannot immediately provide answers. It also brought renewed attention to violence against Indigenous women, a crisis that often goes underreported. Faith's case stands as proof that time does not erase truth, and that justice, while delayed, is still possible. Faith Hedgepeth was more than a case file. She was a young woman with a future that was stolen from her. While nothing can undo what happened, her story serves as a reminder that evidence matters, persistence matters, and every victim deserves to be remembered. This is Crime Light. And this was the case of Faith Hedgepeth. Thank you for watching Crime Light, where we shine a light on real cases and real stories. Drop a like if you enjoyed. If you're new here, subscribe and join the community of truth seekers. Another case drops soon.